Good morning, everyone. Thank you to members of the media and all my friends and supporters, staff and volunteers for joining us. We're here today in the shadow of Grady Hospital, one of the busiest trauma settings in the country, to discuss the problem that sends far too many of our daughters and sons here. Our city is suffering from a devastating crime wave. This year alone, there have been more than 110 murders in our city. While the shootings, hate crimes, and murders make the headlines, rape, assault, and theft have gotten out of control as well. And yes, it will take all of us, want to create a future in Atlanta where it's safe to raise children, walk a dog, pump gas, and go to work, regardless of what part of town you live in, then we need a holistic approach. We can't just arrest our way out of this crisis. Locking up more young men doesn't solve our problems, it just makes things worse. And we can't just fall back on the policies that worked 5 and 10 years ago. We need to create a 21st century police department where officers see themselves as guardians of our community and not warriors against crime, where officers are trained to de-escalate situations without force and not escalate them in the first place, and where those experiencing behavioral or mental health crises are met with a social worker or crisis counselor trained to help, not an officer with a badge and a gun. And yes, we do need to hire more officers, but that isn't enough. We need to create trust between the community and APD. But you can't build trust on a crumbling foundation. That means we have to acknowledge and address the legacy of racism and police brutality head on. That means taking on the root causes of crime, poverty, lack of opportunity, and an unequal system that would rather lock people up than provide them with the help they need. All of this will require hard conversations, harder decisions, and ethical, honest, and transparent leadership to get the job done right. I've never ran away from a tough problem, even when it seems insurmountable. In fact, I spent my life figuring out how to solve problems that are unsolvable and make it happen. If we want to do the right thing by our children in Atlanta, we have our work cut out for us. My plan addresses 5 key areas: children, cops, courts, code enforcement, and our community. I call them the 5 C's. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Sometimes I fear we're at risk of losing a generation of our children to a cycle of crime and violence and lack of opportunity. Everything we do to address the root causes of crime will benefit our children and our city for decades to come. That's why my plan calls for our children. It includes job training programs for teens that doesn't just sit them in a classroom, but pays them to participate so they're not losing money while trying to learn new skills. We will also partner with the Atlanta Public Schools to create and expand programs to end the school to prison pipeline. We're going to expand Camp Best Friends and the At Promise Youth and Community Center so our children have a safe, affordable place to go while their parents are at work. And we're going to ensure our after-school programs are providing our young boys and young girls with fun, engaging, and high-quality STEAM education. If we, as a city, want to support our children, we also need to support their parents too. As our next mayor, we're also going to partner with the unions to help get single moms and dads into paid apprenticeship programs where they can earn trades and secure the kinds of good paying jobs that will allow them and their children to get ahead and stay ahead. And we're going to do a better job of connecting parents to first-time home ownership programs so they can start building generational wealth and provide their children with a brighter future. But we can't just talk about long-term solutions. We need to act now. That brings me to my second C, cops. You know, my mom and dad taught me that no matter how high you are, you stay in touch with the people who are doing the work. You can't know what's happening on the ground when you only leave from a 30,000 feet vantage point. As a member of City Council for 20 years, I've taken that lesson to heart, and I've had the great honor to earn the trust of our city employees, including those in APD. As mayor, I will continue this work, and I will endeavor to have one-on-one conversations with all our officers, and I'll visit every roll call at least once in my first 100 days in office. The men and women who put their lives on the line to protect us have a tough job. Morale is lower than ever. We have far too few officers, and we're losing longtime officers with experience our police department needs. My plan calls for hiring a professional HR director to develop an aggressive strategy to recruit and retain officers who will be trained to modern standards, taught to de-escalate and be guardians, not warriors. And while we're waiting for them to get through the academy, we're going to offer incentives to bring back recently retired officers. But it's not just about adding more officers to our street. We need to create trust between the community and our police officers. We've got wonderful programs that are out there in Atlanta, like Clippers and Cops and the Police Athletic League, that can help create rapport between the community and the police. So we're going to expand on those into every neighborhood so we can start interacting as people instead of only in high stress situations. But getting to know each other, it won't repair the legacy of racism and injustice. Getting to know each other won't address the pervasive disparities that exist in the Black community in virtually every facet of our society: healthy outcomes, wealth, home ownership, school quality. Getting to know each other won't undo past harms, and it won't unteach the justifiable fear that too many Black men and women have of interacting with police. I remember I was riding with a friend maybe 10 years ago. He was driving. I was a city council member at the time, and we got pulled over. I don't remember what for, but what I do remember is the fear in his voice as he made a plan with me about how we would interact with the officer. Keep your hands visible. Don't tell them you're a council member. I'm going to do the talking unless they talk to you directly. Yes, sir. No, sir. Officer, I'm going to reach for my wallet to get my license. Now, everything in that interaction went safely, but far too often, these interactions are deadly. We've heard the stories of Breonna Taylor. We all saw the video of George Floyd's murder, of Tamir Rice's and Walter Scott's. My own father, a union member, an assembly line worker, and eventually a school board member, and one of the kindest people I've ever known, was savagely beaten by police after a traffic stop on his way to pick up my mother. I know that not every officer is bad, and I know we need police in our community to help keep us safe. But we don't have to sacrifice the safety we need for the justice we deserve. We can have both. But to make real progress, we also need to change how we police in our city. We're going to have to get the officers out from behind their desks, out of their cars, and into the community where they can get to know the neighborhoods and understand what happens from experience and not just reports. From the chief on down, under the Moore administration, every officer fit for duty will be required to work at least one patrol shift per week. We're going to release body camera video of every officer-involved shooting within 72 hours or less. And like I've been pushing for from the beginning, we're going to make sure that our officers have the best body cameras available. We're going to break down the blue wall of silence that allows a few bad cops to bring shame on the badge. The police always tell us, if you see something, say something. Well, now we're going to ask our officers to do the same. As mayor, I'll establish a confidential reporting system so they can say something too, without fear of retribution. And we're going to make sure they're required to intervene if they witness one of their peers misbehaving. As mayor, I will also empower a new external police investigation unit independent of APD to oversee and investigate claims of corruption or abuse and do something about it. But reform doesn't stop with the cops. That's why my third C is the courts. As mayor, I wouldn't control the courts myself, but I can use the strong relationships I've built over decades of service to partner with our counties and work with them to make the system better. To do so, I'll work with our partners in DeKalb and Fulton County, the Atlanta Police Department, the Magistrate Court, the District Attorney's Office, the Sheriff's Office, nonprofits, community partners, neighborhood groups, and neighborhoods that are most impacted by crime. We'll also expand diversion programs to ensure people struggling with substance abuse issues get the treatment they need, and we'll do it regionally. Because the challenges we are facing just don't stop at the city limits. What happens in DeKalb or Dorville directly affects us here in Atlanta. And while it may not be popular, I'm going to keep the Atlanta City Detention Center open and allow Fulton County to house incarcerated people there. The jails in Fulton are overflowing. Frankly, the conditions people are living in are inhumane. Regardless of what crimes someone may have committed, they deserve to be treated with compassion, dignity, and respect. And we can do that at ACDC. This brings me to my fourth C, code enforcement. We need to make sure our businesses are following the rules, not serving alcohol to minors, following noise ordinances, and managing their capacities appropriately. And when we have repeat offenders, we need to make sure their violations aren't sitting on a desk gathering dust. Nearly half of our license and permit code enforcement jobs are vacant, and we have a massive backlog of violations. We're going to fill those positions and clear that backlog immediately. Now, I'm not trying to make it harder to run a restaurant or a nightclub. Nightlife is what drew me to Atlanta when I was a young adult. Food, arts, and entertainment are the economic engines of our city. But a few bad actors are hurting other businesses and limiting the opportunities for success by those who play by the rules. And we need to enforce the rules. So every restaurant, bar, nightclub are receiving the same treatment, and everyone has a fair shot to succeed, not just the well-connected. We won't solve this epidemic of crime and violence in our city unless the community comes together and works together to make every neighborhood safer. Community. That's the last of my 5 C's. We need to get back to the basics and give people the tools they need to help keep their neighborhoods safe. So I'm going to build and expand the Neighborhood Watch program and bring back the officer-friendly program. We're going to open up a new, no questions asked, homeless shelter where people can get services without judgment. Services that will help treat mental illness and drug addiction, and that will connect people to jobs and housing and help them get back on their feet. Services that they deserve as members of our community. As mayor, I'm calling on you to be a part of the solution. We all have to step up and be courageous enough to come together and work together to make Atlanta safer. There's a reason children are the first C in my plan. Put simply, it's because they underpin the future of Atlanta. And this plan is really about ensuring all of our children have a bright future where they can grow up, go to school, go to college, raise a family, start a business, and grow old. But the future won't be real. It can't be real unless we address crime here and now, while also investing in crime prevention long term. I love Atlanta with all my heart. And I would not be running for mayor of this great city if I didn't believe with every fiber of my being that we can break the cycle of crime and violence together. We can make it happen. Yes, we can. That's why I'm in this. Not just to hold office or a title, but to gather with you to transform our city. As our next mayor, I promise that I will work every single day to address the crime and violence that has touched every part of our city, north, south, east, and west. So please, join me, and together, we'll create an Atlanta we are proud to call home.